Chapter 6, The Road to Loondu? Kino Amark. Are we any closer to where we're supposed to be? Mayo asked. I could feel how his temper could flare anytime soon. He was tired. All of us were. We have been pushing on for several days now since we left the old man's hut. On the way to Loondu, we passed by Dirella but decided it was not the right place for us to hide. Everybody was trying to account for the casualty of the first and only flooding in the province, and because of that, they were registering everybody's names. The only good thing that came out of Dirella was that we managed to get another horse. It was Pyper's doing. She turned herself invisible, and the rest was history. Even as she pranced the horse about, both she and the horse were nowhere to be seen, and only its hooves could be heard. Her turning invisible was still eerie if you asked me, but I was getting used to it. I don't remember the maps from our class. You were the one who spent countless hours in the library looking for places where we could have an adventure. You should be able to point out this place, I grumbled at Mayo. Well, if the sun hadn't burned my brain already, I would have told you where we are, he complained back. Keep your voice down. Don't whine too much. Remember, nobody dragged you into this, I said, starting to feel irritated. All of us were tired, and I did not need Mayo to complain incessantly about his sore back muscles and the way he was never accustomed to lying on the ground. Mayo frowned. I only wanted to protect you, he said, his voice lower than his usual. I felt guilty. I had known Mayo since we entered schooling, and he has always been a very loyal friend and still is. But the problem was that he had this bad attitude of complaining about everything. Maybe living with his grandmother and enjoying the gold coins his parents kept on sending him made him a little unused to the kind of life Pyper and I had had. I'm sorry, I mumbled. I know you're tired. And we are too. Don't worry, once we find a decent enough place to hide in, we'll set up camp and stay there, maybe even for a few days. Mayo nodded, but I could sense that he was still irritable. Hey, I think we're in Loondu, Pyper said from behind. I turned to face where she was, and for a moment, I could not see the invisible goo that outlined her image. Pyper told me that it was the way Niven's powers worked. If another person could also turn invisible, then the Nivens could not really make themselves totally obscured because there would always be that sort of gooey translucent outline that could be seen around invisible people. Then I stared at where Pyper was looking and read, "Welcome to the Loondu Public Market." Mayo grinned. So now we can set camp? We don't have money, so I figured we would still be sleeping in boxes, Pyper said. That's better than traveling day in and out, Mayo said matter-of-factly. Anyone hungry? Pyper asked. Do you really have to ask? Mayo almost yelled. We've no more food in our packs. Let's inch over there. Mayo, stay with the horses while Kino and I work something out for lunch, she said, trailing off. Pyper and I went to the corner of the marketplace where nobody would pay us any mind. Pyper climbed down from the horse and handed the reins to Mayo. The horse became visible as though magic. Come on, Kino. It's time to put your invisibility power to good use, she said, but when she remembered that we were probably going to sneak up to the stalls and steal some fruit, she added, maybe bad use. But we've got to eat, don't we? I was standing behind some Loonduns, watching as Pyper sneaked towards one of the stalls. Then for some reason, her gooey figure vanished from my sight. Where did she go? I craned my neck to see where she could have been, but I could not find her. What the cratty ass was wrong with my power? How else would I learn to sneak and steal a few apples? From my back, a voice spoke, Hey lad, get out of here. You're blocking my stall. I turned to see a rather dark man staring at me with open annoyance. He could likely see right through me and the things I was planning to do to his apples. I gulped and walked away. I tried to make myself invisible when there was no one looking. To my surprise, however, my body only flickered for a while, and then I was solid again. What was wrong with my power? Why couldn't I make myself invisible? Just then, in front of me, a gooey figure started to approach me. What's wrong with you? Pyper asked. I've been gesturing for you to follow me, and you stand here like you don't see me at all, she said, obviously annoyed. But that's only because you vanished right under my nose. That's impossible. She gasped. Believe it. You were a few paces from me, and then, you were gone. I tried to make myself invisible, but I couldn't do it. To my irritation, I tried it again, and this time, it worked. You're invisible now. Don't play games with me, Pyper chided. If you're afraid to grab a few apples, then next time, starve. If I'm the only one who's going to get food for us, then tell Mayo that he can only have 2 apples each meal. Not one more, no matter how much he complains. I did not hear the rest of Pyper's ranting because I was so shocked to find myself invisible again. You've got to believe me. I couldn't turn myself invisible just now, I argued. Next time, tell me you're not up for it so I wouldn't be disappointed when you get cold feet. Pyper turned away and trotted to where Mayo was. Still stunned from the turn of events, I followed her nonetheless. Pyper squeezed through a crowd of Loonduns. The marketplace was so crowded today. One could easily get lost in the sea of Loondun noise. Maybe it was a bad idea to come here. Pyper's gooey figure vanished again from my sight as 3 or 4 Loonduns separated us. My body showed, and I blushed, crouching immediately at a nook to hide, and hoping that no one saw a body suddenly appear out of thin air. I was confused as I ran all the way to Mayo. This time, I decided not to cloak myself in invisibility. If I did, I might find myself in trouble for not being able to control it well enough. In a panic, I began to run after Pyper, and was shocked when I found myself sprinting so fast, as though my feet did not touch the ground, at all. And if I did not stop now, I would crash against the wall. True enough, I did. Pyper's body showed. What's wrong with you? She asked, the concern now etched on her face. Mayo was nibbling on an apple. His eyes were bulging too. That big ball of dust was you? He said, obviously surprised. My eyes were probably as wide as his. I don't know. But right now, I have a terrible headache, and my face is going to be blue in the morning, I said, clutching my bloody cheek. You're being weird, Pyper said. I sat down and wiped the blood off my face. Weird? If my hunch was correct, my power was fabulous. I grinned at Pyper and Mayo, who looked at me in askance. I think I finally figured out what my power is, I said.